power of the blood of Jesus Christ. We come to celebrate, as we do at the beginning of every month, the communion, which demonstrates the power of God through the sacrifice of his Son, Jesus Christ. Let me invite you to stand with us as we sing of the Spirit of our Sovereign Lord.
Spirit of the Sovereign Lord, come and make your presence known. Reveal the glory of the living God. Spirit of the Sovereign Lord, come and make your presence known. Reveal the glory of the living God. Let the weight of your glory cover us. Let the life of your river flow. Let the truth of your kingdom reign in us. Let the weight of your glory, let the weight of your glory fall. Spirit of the Sovereign Lord, come and make your presence known. Reveal the glory of the living God. Spirit of the Sovereign Lord, come and make your presence known. Reveal the glory of the living God. Let the weight of your glory cover us. Let the life of your river flow. Let the truth of your kingdom reign in us. Let the weight of your glory, let the weight of your glory fall. And we do not seek your hand. We only seek your face. We want to know you. We want to see you. Reveal your glory in this place. Let the weight of your glory cover us. Let the life of your river flow. Let the truth of your kingdom reign in us. Let the weight of your glory, let the weight of your glory fall. Let the weight of your glory, let the weight of your glory fall. I enter the Holy of Holies. I enter through the blood of the Lamb. I enter to worship you only.
we thank you for the privilege of being in your house, in your presence, through the power of your Spirit that joins us one to another, to sing praises to you that honor you for who you are, for your gift of salvation through the power of the blood of your Son, Jesus Christ, through the Spirit that you give us to guide us and lead us, and the opportunity to stand in the presence of our holy God. We thank you for the word that you give us that teaches us the truths we need to know, shows us your interaction with those who've gone before, and your promise of hope and guidance for us in our own lives. We thank you, Lord, for this hour we have set aside to enjoy the fellowship one with another and the power of the Spirit to teach and guide us. We pray this in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. You may be seated for a moment. Today we have Men on a Mission, so don't forget that, gentlemen. We are going to be celebrating the Lord's table here at the end of our service. There is no evening Bible study tonight. That will resume again next week. Next week, we're going to finish up our study on Satan as found in the book of Revelation, and then we're going to go back to some of the videos related to biblical archaeology that we've shown in the past. And there's some things I've been watching from Answers in Genesis and the Creation Institute. There's some amazing teaching out there that I think we're going to bring some of that to Sunday nights. We'll kind of give you an idea of what's coming up and invite you to be part of that. Awana is starting in a week from Monday. School starts this week. Awana in a week from tomorrow night. We're excited about that. And a new ladies' Sunday school class will begin a new topic of study called Discerning the Voice of God, which begins September 15th in a couple of weeks. As you start seeing things in the bulletin, the hayride's coming up on the 21st. Teen Retreat is coming in the weekend of the 13th, 14th at La Mocha. There's a lot of exciting things happening. So Angel Closet is coming up. That's coming in October 18 to 20. 18 to 20 off the top of my head. And guess what? Christmas is just around the corner. I've already got established 3 of the themes for the month of January, December, whatever month Christmas is in. I've already been working on 3 or 4 of the themes. We're going to be doing some stuff this year as a church. I'm hoping you're going to participate in some things related weekly to the Christmas story and the theme of Jesus Christ, and we'll let you know about that I'm hoping by end of September. You'll kind of know what December looks like. I'm already excited about Christmas. I've watched about 24 Christmas movies, all from the Hallmark Channel in the past month. Try and get at least one in every day. At the end of the day, a Christmas movie. I am in the theme of Christmas. I don't like snow, but I love Christmas. And so I hope you're getting excited about the fall and us worshiping together, and even exciting about the things God is going to do. Psalm 139, 23 and 24 says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxieties, and see if there is any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." Let me invite you to stand with us as we sing of the glorious things of God.
Glorious things of thee are spoken, Zion city of our God. He whose word cannot be broken, formed thee for his own abode. On the rock of ages founded, one the fragrance of spring. Every creature unique in the song that it sings, all exclaiming, indescribable, uncontainable. You place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. All powerful, untamable, awestruck we fall to our knees as we humbly proclaim. You are amazing, God. Who has told every lightning bolt where it should go? Or seen heavenly storehouses laden with snow? Who imagined the sun and gave source to its light, yet conceals it to bring us the coolness of night? None can fathom, indescribable, uncontainable. You place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. Incomparable, unchangeable, lost in the depths of my heart and you love me the same. You are amazing, God. Indescribable, uncontainable, you place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. All powerful, untamable, awestruck we fall to our knees as we humbly proclaim. You are amazing, God.
Our scripture reading this morning comes out of 2 Kings chapter 5. The amazing thing that Naaman is going to realize is that God is all-powerful, unchangeable, and meets the needs of people where they are. The first 3 verses of 2 Kings chapter 5. Now Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but a leper. And the Syrians had gone out on raids and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife. Then she said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy." The story of Naaman is the story of faith, the story of circumstances in which God brings people together to meet the needs of those who even appear to be the enemies of God. But we will find what God will do in light of man's needs and our response in humility to trusting in him. Just before the message, let's sing "My Faith Has Found a Resting Place." My faith has found
a resting place, not in device or creed. I trust the ever-living one, his wounds for me shall plead. I need no other argument, I need no other plea. It is enough that Jesus died, and that he died for me. Enough for me that Jesus saves. It takes my fear and doubt. A sinful soul I come to him, he'll never cast me out. I need no other argument, I need no other plea. It is enough that Jesus died, and that he died for me.
Thank you. May be seated. We'll invite the kids up as we talk about when was the last time they were ill. Hey, Theo. Thanks for coming up and meeting me where I am. I'm almost set. You ready? All right, come on. I heard you went to a new Sunday school class today. Yeah, was it good? Was the Sunday school class good? All right, let me ask you something, Theo. When was the last time you were sick? Do you remember? Can you remember the last time you were sick? How did you feel? Did you feel good or bad? Don't know? What's the worst illness you can remember having, guys? What's the worst thing you've had? Pneumonia. Okay? The flu, like the real flu, where you're just like, ugh, everything's terrible. Worst illness. Growing up, yeah. Oh man. You guys like have any of you like lost an arm yet? No. You know, like fell off because it like rotted or okay, we're good. Hair fall out? No. As a result of an illness? No. What do your parents do to help you feel better when you feel sick? Give me some things they do to help you feel better. Give me one thing. What's a mustard plaster. Is that French's? Is that French's mustard we use? I've heard of the old mustard plaster. My dad was like the gourmet cook of mustard plaster when I was a kid. Fortunately, I was never sick, never had one. But boy, they had them around the house. What do they do when you feel bad? They give you some medicine? What kind of medicine? You know what medicine for my mom is? Ginger ale. She calls it medicine. Ginger ale. Anything else? What do your parents do when you feel sick? They might have to take you to the hospital. Do they do anything else? They just let you like suffer off in the corner, like go away? You know? Do they put you in bed? They maybe read you a story. They give you the right kind of food to eat or something to drink. You ever have a cool washcloth like put on your forehead because you got a fever or something? Nope. You don't remember that? Well, what do you think is the best medicine? If you could define the best medicine, what would you want as a medicine? Always have a suggestion. What do you want? Ice cream. That was what I was thinking. I was thinking ice cream. Ice cream. You can never go wrong with ice cream as a medicine. What else? Donuts. Okay. I got some in the office. You know, if you're feeling sick and poorly at the end of the service, let me know. Popsicles, very good. Do you like rocket pops that have the 3 colors? Oh, I do too. Mine for the grandkids, but I eat them all before they get there. I love rocket pops. Anything else? Best medicine? Chips. You're speaking my wife's language. Chips. Brought her home a couple of bags last night just because it's been a long week. And she says, "You have chips?" I said, "I do." And I love chips. Okay. Would you be willing to do this to get better? I have 4 suggestions. Raise your hand if you'd be willing to do this. Eat kale. Kale is garnish. Kale is a decoration you put on a buffet line not to be eaten. Would you eat it? Okay. All right, here's the next suggestion. Would you drink black coffee? I've only had to drink black coffee twice in my life. I survived it. But would you drink? I don't know if I would drink black coffee to get better. I think I would just stay sick. All right, here's another one. Would you do this? Look at me. Would you stand on your head for an hour to get better? Stand on your head for an hour. All right, here's the last one. I think some of you would never do this. You would never do this to get better. Not speak for an entire day. As you speak. Christina, did you know which of your children said that? Yeah. Not speak for an entire day. Some of you would be hard. Some of you couldn't make 6 minutes. Just be honest. You would talk. Today I want to tell you a little bit about a guy by the name of Naaman. Naaman is a leper. Leprosy is a disease of your skin. It's painful. It's ugly. It's contagious. Nobody wants to be near you when you have leprosy. But he's also the commander of the army of Syria. He's the top general. He's in charge. He's powerful, he's strong, he makes all the decisions, but he needs help. What does it take for a guy who's in charge of everything to go and get help? What does it take? Naaman is going to leave Syria and go to Israel to get help from a prophet who's not a soldier, who's not a commander, who's not a big deal. And you'll hear the story this morning in the message about what Naaman is willing to do, unless you're going to children's church, and then you're going to hear about Saul becoming king of Israel, correct? All right. When your wife is a junior church teacher, you actually know what the lesson is going to be that week. Oh, there's outlines up there if you want them. When most people think about the Bible, and particularly the Old Testament, if they know any history at all of what the Bible's about, they assume that the entire Old Testament is about Israel, the nation of Israel. Not in the first few chapters, but most people don't have. If they have a casual understanding of the Bible, they don't really have a lot of knowledge about chapters 1 through 12, 1 through 11 of Genesis. They just get to the point of Abraham and the story of Israel and Moses and Egypt and temples and kings. And so most people think the entire Old Testament is about the nation of Israel. Is God myopically focused on Israel? Is that what it is about? God is only thinking about Israel when you consider the Old Testament. Is the entire story of the Old Testament singularly committed to Abraham and his descendants? That's what most people think as they look at the Old Testament. It's all about Israel. It's all about Israel. It's all about Israel. And then when you get to the kingdom dividing in two, then you don't know whether to say Israel or Judah, because people go, Judah, what are you talking about? Well, that's the southern kingdom, and Israel's the northern kingdom. And the northern kingdom is made up of 10 tribes, and the southern kingdom is made up of 2, and I've already bored you. And I know that. That's why I did that. And you're going, it's all about Israel. It's all about Israel. Is there room for anyone outside of Israel in the story of the Old Testament? I mean, is there really room for anybody else? If a person wants to be part of the story of Israel in the Old Testament, do they not have to join the nation? They call them like a proselyte, and they join the nation. They kind of become an immigrant who comes into Israel and joins and becomes part of the family of Israel. Does God notice the needs of people who are not part of the house of Jacob? I mean, God's got enough to do, and the house of Jacob, the nation of Israel, has grown into millions of people, and they're scattered over a large geographic area, and they all have their own struggles, both individually and as tribes and as a nation whole. Does God really have time to notice needs of people who are outside of that? And should God actually help someone who's not part of Israel, a heathen, a Gentile, a foreigner? What would a foreigner have to do to get help from God in Israel? I mean, what would he have to do? Well, that's the wrong question. The question isn't what does a foreigner have to do to get God's help? The question is, who needs God's help? That's the real question, and that's the question that the Bible asks and answers repeatedly. Who needs God's help? 2 Kings chapter 5 says this, Now Naaman, we read this already, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but a leper. This guy is powerful. He's the commander of the entire army of the nation of Syria. I don't know how big the nation of Syria was at that time. I didn't look it up. All I know is if you go to any group and you find a guy who's in charge of the military, no matter how big or small that group of people is, he's the most powerful person. He's one step below the king. And maybe at times he's one step equal to the king because he's got the army on his side faithful to him. That's who this guy is. He's powerful. He's great, it says, and he's honorable. He's a good guy. Now, you'd say, why would God be looking at a guy who's a heathen, who worships false gods, and call him a good guy, an honorable man? He's also a mighty man of valor. We find that phrase being used of the men who followed David, the 400 men who followed David were mighty men of valor, people who fought for God and fought for their king in a way that was honorable. That's this man. He's admired. He's influential. And here's the most interesting thing in this verse. The most interesting thing is it says, by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was a man favored by God. He is the commander of an army of a foreign nation, and God is using him to give that foreign nation victories. I thought the Old Testament was all about Israel, and now all of a sudden we got this nation called Syria. They're also known as the Arameans. And God is interested in this guy Naaman so much that he lets this guy be successful in battles that Syria does in fighting other enemies. Now, if there's ever one who had everything going for him, it's this guy Naaman. Powerful, great, honorable, a mighty man of valor, admired, influential, and favored by God. But he's a leper. Not the kind of popularity or notoriety you aspire to, right? It was a few weeks back again when we were clearing a little bit of brush near our house over on Cold Spring, and Michael had the skid loader and he was clearing a bunch of stuff, and I'm just kind of hanging out there. Wouldn't you know it? Poison ivy. Never saw it coming until I began to scratch, and it covered my legs and my arms. It got some on my face. And I'm going, just don't make it so that I'm so ugly more than normal that people don't want to look at me. I never look in the mirror, so I don't worry about what I look like. But you have to worry about that. Being a leper is not being popular. It's being notorious. Okay, give your commands from a distance, O General Naaman. Don't come too close. Don't give me a hug. With all Naaman could do for himself, with all of his accomplishments and his success, he could not solve this problem. He could not meet his own need. The question is, who could help him? Apparently, nobody within the nation of Syria. You know, if the guy at the top or one of the guys in the top echelon of a country have an issue, there's plenty of resources within the country to address that. The question is, who can help God help Naaman? I mean, God could just miraculously do things for Naaman. But he works through an individual. 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 2, which is kind of crazy when you think about this. The Syrians had gone out on raids. We're going to hear about these Syrian raids in next week's message. The Syrians had gone out on a raid and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel. So Syria and Israel are not like friends. This is not like a trading process where we'll come over and you'll give us some of your servants and there'll be servants in our house. No, they raided and stole. They kidnapped and grabbed this young lady, and Naaman actually had her working in his house serving his wife, a slave girl from Israel. Who can help Naaman? 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 3. So this slave girl says to her mistress, Naaman's wife, if only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, he would heal him of his leprosy. You know, Naaman's here in Syria, but if he would just go to Samaria, that is the capital, that is the region around the capital of the northern kingdom of Israel, if he would just go there, there's a prophet, Elisha, and he could heal him. I mean, this Elisha is known for helping individual people. She knew he could heal her, so Naaman gets this message from his wife. So the servant girl tells the wife, and the wife tells the husband, and the husband tells the king. Naaman tells the king of Syria about this prophet that is in Israel. 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 5. Then the king of Syria said, hey, go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel. Hey, if you can get healed in Israel, then let's go there. I'll send a letter to the king. It's kind of a diplomatic deal. Sometimes world leaders from around the world will come to America to get maybe some medical care, or to another nation, and maybe those nations are not as friendly as they could be, but maybe they're on a hiatus in their hostilities, and they'll say, certainly for humanitarian reasons, send them over and we'll put them in our hospital, we'll give them the surgery, we'll heal them, and we'll send them back home. The king is all for helping his commander. So Naaman went to the king of Samaria and gave him the king's letter. It's interesting that none of the characters are named in this passage. Just Naaman and Elisha. 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 6. Now be advised, this is the letter from the king of Syria to the king of Israel. Now be advised when this letter comes to you that I have sent Naaman my servant to you, that you may heal him of his leprosy. One king just to another. This is the commander of my army. You understand how important he is to me. Heal him. Now, nothing more comes out of the letter than this is the responsibility of the king. What if he can't do it? What if he doesn't want to do it? The question is, who can do God's work? The king of Syria thinks the king of Israel has power over healing because there's people in his country who can do healing, and he should just be able to direct the power of God. And that this should be done miraculously. The king of Israel must heal Naaman. The king of Israel, of course, at this moment, he panics. Just like you probably would when you're given a task that's impossible, that's not for you to do. And here's what he says in verse 7. Am I a God? Am I a God to kill and make alive? I mean, can I just do these miraculous things? That this man sends a man to me to heal him of leprosy? See how he seeks a quarrel with me. I know what's going on here. I'm not denying that Naaman is sick. I'm not denying that he has leprosy. But he just wants to provoke a fight. We see that all the time in world events, right? Well, we hope that we don't see that, but sometimes they called it saber rattling back in the old days when people had swords, and you'd rattle your swords. They knew you had a weapon and you were getting ready to use it. And this idea that one nation would make a threat or make a posture that the other one has to respond to. I've heard all sorts of ideas about the war in Ukraine and what were the causes that made that become a real war as opposed to just a threatened war for years. And it's because certain people will make statements and it threatens the other side, and before the other side can do something against them, they respond in kind. There's all sorts of theories about how World War II started or how America got into the war, because there were people who wanted us to get into war, but they needed an excuse, and they allowed an excuse to occur, and people are at war. That's always what goes on in world politics, right? One nation is attempting to get an advantage by shaking another nation to make a mistake, and then you can have your battle. That's what the king of Israel thinks. Can the king of Israel heal? I mean, seriously. If someone came to you and says, well, I hear you're a Christian. And you go, yes, I'm a Christian. And I hear you believe in the God of the Bible. And you say, yes, I believe in the God of the Bible. And you think the stories of the Bible are real. They're not stories. They're actually events. They're actual real accounts. I say, yes, I do. Well, I have a problem that's very similar to this story I heard that's in the Bible. And the person in the Bible went to a person who's a follower of God, and that person in the Bible helped them. Can you help me? Well, what's the problem? Do you need some food? I can help you. Do you need some money? I can help you. No. I have cancer. And I've heard people who are desperately ill. There was a woman, and she spent all of her money on care for a blood disorder, and she touched the robe of Jesus, and she got healed. But I know Jesus isn't around, but you're a follower of Jesus, and I heard followers of Jesus could do the same thing. I heard this story they call it, there's an old and a new, and I heard there's this new part, and there were guys who were just like touching people, and one of them had like a handkerchief. So do you have a hanky? Because I got cancer. And can you heal that? What would your answer be? Whoa. Well, just because the stories in the Bible are true, God doesn't do that anymore. Are you going to go there and say God doesn't heal anymore? Is that where you're going to go? Well, God doesn't heal that way anymore. Well, do you have an answer to what God does do? That's the king of Israel. I don't care that there have been people doing miracles. I'm not one of them. In fact, there's not a single king in Israel, in the whole history of the kings of Israel, who believes in God. Not a single one. Not one of them follows God of all the kings of Israel. You go to the kingdom of Judah, and about 8 of the kings of Judah follow God after David. After David and Solomon, there's like 8. The rest don't. So as a whole, the kings over Judah and Israel don't follow God. Now they're being asked to be God. So he tore his clothes. That was his response. We're doomed. I don't know where they were politically at that point necessarily. The nation of Syria and the nation of Israel. We'll find in next week's message what's happening, and whether what happens in the next chapters is before the Naaman incident, it's unclear. What you find is you have the Syria raiding Israel on a regular basis, just like punching across the border, harassing, stealing. It's kind of like the Middle East, where every once in a while, I know they're in a full-blown war now, but in the past, in the Middle East, all of a sudden you hear, oh, some rockets were sent over. And some rockets were sent back. That's kind of skirmishes. That's going on, and we're not quite sure who's more powerful than who, but Syria is definitely the aggressor against Israel at this point. And so the king tears his clothes. He says, I don't have anything. There's nothing I can do. When you find characters in the Old Testament tearing their clothes, it's one of two things they're attempting to do. They're attempting to say to God, I am sorry, I repent, I'm going to follow you. Or it's saying, I am desperate, I'm in trouble, and I have no resources to meet my needs. The second one is what's going on here. There's no place where this king of Israel, who is attempting to appease God, is attempting to say, I'm so sorry, God, I've been astray. Now you've put me in this vulnerable situation. That's not what's going on here. When people do that in the scriptures, God gives us their words of repentance. He tells us this is what they said. This is what they did. When the people in Nineveh hear the message of Jonah as he walks through the city for 3 days and tells them judgment is coming in 40 days, 30 days or 40 days, I don't remember now. The people, the king particularly, tear their clothes, sit in ashes, and get everybody in the city to do it, to repent to God and say, we're sorry, please don't kill us. He might be doing that in the sense as I can't solve my own problem. Verse 8, 2 Kings 5. So it was when Elisha, the man of God, he heard what had happened. He heard that Naaman had come. He heard about the letter. He heard what the king had done. I don't know how well that word got to him. He is several miles away where he's living. But when he heard that, he sent to the king saying, he sent a message to the king, why have you torn your clothes? Please, let him, meaning Naaman, come to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. The emphasis is not the king of Israel. The emphasis is not Israel itself. Israel itself is not a follower of God. They've not been obedient to God in any way. They're worshiping false gods just like the Syrians do. But there is a prophet in Israel who follows God by the name of Elisha, who followed up from Elijah, who asked for a double portion of God's power, and God granted it to him. He lives in Israel, one of the few followers of God. Remember, Elijah complained there were no followers of God, and God said there were 7,000. In the entire nation, there were 7,000. Small percentage of people in the nation of Israel follow God. Elisha lives in that same context. And he says, why are you tearing your clothes when you know there is a prophet in Israel? Was this king unaware of the presence of Elisha? This is a descendant, this king, of Ahab. Ahab knew Elijah. And Elisha is the prophetic, dramatic replacement or successor to Elijah. And he says, why'd you tear your clothes? You know there's a prophet. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to show Naaman there's a prophet. Because apparently, you don't care if there's a prophet. And they proved it day in and day out by not following the words of the prophet. The prophet exists in the nation of Israel to drive people to God, to lead them to God, to encourage them to pursue God as individuals. God doesn't try and change a group of people. He tries to change the individuals within the group. You get no credit for being in a group. Just understand that. Nobody gets any credit for being in a group. You could join a political group. You could join a social group. You could join a religious group. You could join a family group. You don't get any credit for being in that group. Being in a group doesn't make you necessarily anything. You are who you are, and if you don't reveal who you are, then people will assume who you are by the group you sit in. God is not trying to change Israel as a group. He's trying to change Israelites, people of Israel, including the king. And now a guy by the name of Naaman, a Syrian, a heathen, a foreigner, a Gentile, a powerful man with a big problem, God wants to try and change him by introducing him to the prophet who is in Israel. A prophet he didn't know anything about until he took captive by sinful kidnapping, took captive a young girl, ripped her out of her homeland to serve his wife in his own home. There really isn't that much nobility going on here in the sense of people who are good people. Every once in a while in the New Testament, we meet a Gentile who actually is a follower of God, a worshiper of God, and is attempting to do the things of God even though he's a Gentile. We meet a couple of those characters. Naaman is not one of those. He's not been one who's been faithful to God and goes, oh, yes, I should just go over to Israel. I know I live in Syria, but if I could sneak over the border into Israel, I can meet the prophet, and the prophet will give me the hope I need and the care. Do you ever wonder about the believers who are living right now in nations that are wickedly opposed to God? And if they knew their citizens were pursuing a personal, loving, worshipful relationship with Jesus Christ, they would not react negatively to that. You could probably name 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 nations in the world right now where people who follow God in those have to be careful how they express that worship of Jesus Christ. But here's the bigger question. Why don't they leave? Why don't they just go to a nation that's more amenable to the worshiping of God? Well, you might say they're not able to, and that's probably the answer that's most prevalent. But if they were able to, would they leave or would they stay? Would they stay in that nation to be a light in a nation where they are constantly under threat of some level of persecution or opposition to their faith? Naaman is not looking for a new belief. But Elisha is ready to offer to Naaman the knowledge that there is a prophet of the true God in Israel. So Elisha offers to meet Naaman. Elisha invites Naaman to meet the prophet in Israel. The question is Naaman ready for this? Naaman wants his problem solved, but is he ready for everything that wraps around the solution? You might find someone who has an issue in their life and they want some things solved. And you might give them some biblical counsel, some counsel that comes right from the Word of God that says, well, you need to do this or this. How often are people not ready for that? There have been times when Vicki and I have met with couples who are having some trouble in their marriage. And it's pretty obvious what needs to happen. And if we're honest and we're pointed at the level of relationship saying, well, you got to do this and this, sometimes that ends. There's no more meetings. Well, I wanted you to give me a solution that I wanted, not a solution that God wants. I have my own way I want to solve this problem. Is Naaman ready? Is he ready to meet the prophet in Israel? Is he ready to meet God? I mean, he's got a problem that can only be met, not by medicine. If there was medicine, if there was treatment possibilities, that would have been known to some degree within the entire region, and they'd have brought somebody in to help him. See, the question is, are we ready to meet God? When we read the Bible, are we ready to meet God? Often we want to read the things in the Bible that gives us the truths we want to hear, but are we ready just to meet God? So next week's message took me by surprise. I knew the story that I was going to be dealing with, the next couple paragraphs, the next couple chapters. I kind of knew where it went, but I hadn't thoroughly studied it at all. And I was actually writing the message, working my way through, getting to where the end of the paragraph was, and I got to the last 2 verses for next week, and I went, what? I'm not sure I get this. I could read the words, I could understand the words, but I didn't have enough context. I haven't taught that passage before in my recollection of 40 years. And I had to read some things. I had to pull out some commentaries and say, maybe they answer it. Often the commentaries don't. The thing you can't get, they didn't get. And so nobody answers it, and you just move on. This one, they did. A couple of these guys, they had a couple of different sources. They said, well, here's what's going on. I went, what? What? And I'd already thought through the whole theme of where that message was kind of going. And then I got those last two verses, and it like turned it upside down. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You'll have to come next week and hear it. It was like, it changed everything. I get the sense of a message, and then I write my introduction. Before I write the whole message, I get a sense of the text. I kind of know where it's going, and I'm saying, how does it relate to us? And I write this introduction. I had to rewrite the whole introduction. It was going, that's not going where it was. That just took me by surprise. It shouldn't have. Because even I was talking to somebody else about it. It fits exactly with the New Testament teaching. It fits with the overall picture. But you get into your mind, this little paragraph's going to kind of stay in its little lane. And it's not really going to fit in the big picture. It's just going to be one of these little side trips. You know, you see the sign that says largest ball of yarn. And you just got to get off the highway and go see the largest ball of yarn. You know, I mean, you have to. And it doesn't mean anything for your vacation as you're going to 17 national parks, but you can at least say you saw the largest ball of yarn on your journey. Sometimes a biblical story seems to be the largest ball of yarn. It's interesting, but you don't know how it kind of fits. It's just every once in a while, God just wants a little laugh track thrown into the scriptures or some little dramatic vignette, and he throws it in. Really, what actually happens is it all fits in a single story. You know why we're doing this whole series? It's Keith's fault. It's Keith Swimley's fault. Because about 1.5 years or 2 years ago, we were talking, and he said to me, I would love to do a class or something where we just walk through the story of the Bible. And he mentioned, I think, in an elders meeting, and a few months went by, and I was working on finishing up, I think, Revelation, and I went, I think I'm going to steal that idea. I think I'd like to walk through the whole story of the Bible. Well, you see, we're at 2 Kings. We've been this over a year. And 1 year ago, we were at David. So it's taken a little while to get through the whole story of the Bible. And I haven't outlined it, so I don't know where it's going. I mean, I know where it's going. I just keep flipping to the next page. And then I decide whether I'm going to deal with that page or the next one. I mean, I move on. But I think very often, we are not ready to meet God. My illustration of next week's message was I kind of knew where it fit into this whole story. That's why I chose the next paragraph. This is how it fits into the whole story of the Bible. I'm picking out stories that fit. And then it was totally shifted. And I went, does that fit with the story of the Bible? And then I had to think enough about it and go, yeah, I should have expected that. But that's the beauty of God. He will meet us where we are and give us the unexpected if we're open to listening to what might happen. Is Naaman ready to meet God? 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 9. Then Naaman went with his horses and chariot, and he stood at the door of Elisha's house. So he comes with a retinue. He's got a group of people, and he's there, and he's powerful, and he's got his chariot, and he's got his horses. Think about this. He's coming in his limousine and nobody owns a limousine. He's showing up in all the power and all the pomp and circumstance when everybody else walks. Nobody has a chariot. Nobody has a cart. Remember how Jesus came into Jerusalem on a small 4-footed animal, not a big white horse, not as the King of Kings, but just in this humble little manner. Why? Normally, Jesus just walked everywhere. This was a special occasion. Rides a mule. Something big. Naaman shows up, chariot. Chariot, soldiers. You think Naaman goes alone to Israel? No. Chariot, soldiers with him, shows up at Elisha's door, been invited. Now, if you've been invited to my house and you've been there multiple times and you know what time you're supposed to come, you could just walk into the house. So like family fellowships and stuff when they've had them at the house, 6 o'clock on a Friday night, 5 o'clock on a night, you don't have to knock on the door. First time maybe because you feel a little nervous, so you knock on the door before you come in. But if you're expected, you just walk into the house and you say, hey, we're here. Whenever we go over to Michael or Becca's house, I never knock. I apologize if it's inappropriate. Sometimes I call and say, hey, Michael, I'm coming over, and then I just walk in. Hey, Michael, where are you? Normally the kids scream and yell, Papa, Papa, and Theo wants something or whatever. Elisha shows up. Naaman shows up, and he's expected. You'd think, I don't know how many windows Elisha would have in his house, old clay building, probably not too many windows, but you'd probably hear the horses and the chariot, and so he shows up. He came all the way from Syria to Samaria. He left the capital of Israel to find Elisha's house. He stands at the door waiting. Verse 10. And Elisha sent a messenger out to him. Go, wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored to you, and you shall be clean. Elisha did not greet Naaman. He didn't come to the door. He didn't talk to him personally. He sent a messenger out, a servant out. It's like, here's the card. Go read it to him. We got this all covered. Here's what Naaman needs to do. Let's go down to the river and wash yourself. 7 times. He gave him a simple task, but not an easy task. Why do I say it's not an easy task? Well, Naaman is a big man. Big in the sense of who he is. And he is among his servants, and he is the big guy on the block. Big guys do big things. They do big things. Things are dramatic and powerful and grand. And Naaman doesn't bathe in front of his soldiers and his servants. This guy's going to go down to a river and strip off his clothes and walk into the river once, come out, walk in again, come out, walk in again. I mean, by the time you go in the 3rd time and nothing's happened, are your servants and your soldiers beginning to snicker? I mean, maybe they're going to hold in because at some point you could do something to them, but the guy's in his tighty-whities. The guy's in his boxer shorts is not looking too powerful. In fact, he's looking as the vulnerable, weak, ineffective, former leader of the Syrian army. Is Naaman ready to do that? Well, if you know the story, he's not. Because in verse 11, Naaman became furious and went away and said, indeed, I have said to myself, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy. He was expecting people like Benny Hinn, just to mention a name, a faith healer. He's expecting to come on stage with 5,000 people watching, and the hand of God brings the power of God and heals the man, and the woman gets out of her wheelchair, and the tumor in the brain magically disappears, and, you know, he's a worshiper of false gods. False gods expect grand gestures in order to return some grand, and apparently in Israel, you actually get a response from God. Unlike my own gods in Syria, who never do anything without us interpreting that they did something in the past, you know, religions are good at saying, oh yeah, this is what God did in the past, but they're not good at saying, God, do it right now, and then it happens. There's no record really of that happening with false religions, where some prophet calls on something to happen and it happens, not like Elijah calling down fire from heaven. Not like Jesus calling on Lazarus to come out of the grave. I mean, that just doesn't happen in the false religions. In the false religions, you see something happen and then you interpret that it was. Yes, I remember when I asked a long time ago. It's like reading a fortune cookie. You can read any fortune cookie and in the next week that will happen to you. Because you'll interpret something in light of the fortune cookie. And you'll say the fortune cookie was right. If that's true, why have you not run the lottery? Because on the back of the fortune cookie are the lottery numbers. So if the fortune on the front works, then the lottery numbers on the back should work, and we should all be rich. But since the lottery numbers don't work, the fortune doesn't work, we simply interpret things in light of what we want to believe. And Naaman says, this should have been something big. I'm important. Naaman expected at least some personal attention. But he really wanted a grand appeal on the part of Elisha to his God, so that Elisha would come out and make some grand speech and prayer, "Oh God of Israel," so that this man knows that you are the all-powerful and mighty God. Heal him of his leprosy, and here's where it is. And he'd wave his hand. It sounds like the leprosy didn't cover his whole body, but waved it over the area where the healing needed to take place. It's kind of like radiation. for cancer, right? They only shoot it where you need it. And that's what he expected. Some dramatic demonstration. He did not appreciate being told to humble himself. This really came down to, right? Because here's what he says in verse 12. Are not the Abana and the Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? I mean, if we're just going to talk about water, why would I bathe in this muddy stream when back in my own country are beautiful flowing rivers that I could bathe in? Could I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in a rage. So our question was he ready to meet God? Absolutely not. He wasn't. Because to meet God, you must humble yourself. Naaman sees Israel as inferior. He has been leading raids against Israel. They can't even stop us. When we want to, we come across the border, we take what we want. Oh, we're not going to wipe out the nation because we don't want to occupy the nation. We just want to take a little bit of their stuff. And Naaman sees Elisha's instructions as humiliating. The question is, are we willing to humble ourselves? If we're willing to meet God, are we willing to humble ourselves? That theme of humbling ourselves before God is consistent throughout the entire Old and New Testament. It's the same. Even Jesus himself humbles himself to the will of the Father in the garden. Not my will, but yours. Even Jesus humbles himself to be put on a cross, to be struck and not to answer back. If Jesus can humble himself and ride on a donkey when he's the king, then asking us to humble ourselves is not a big ask. So verse 13, one of the servants is pretty bold here because he comes near to Naaman, speaks to him and says, my father, if the prophet had told you to do something great, would you not have done it? I mean, if he told you how to do this big, elaborate thing, you'd have done it, right? Because it would have been representative of how great you are, and that you will do this grand thing to get the attention of God, and God will see the immensity of your influence in the world, and when people see that you have healed them, then he will even become larger in the eyes of his army and his nation and before his king. Well, if you're willing to do some big thing, he says, how much more then when he says, wash and be clean? I mean, seriously, if he asked you for a big thing, you'd be willing to do it. Could you just do a small thing? But it's not a small thing, is it? When we are driven by our pride, it is not a small thing to humble ourselves. It is not a small thing for someone to change the rules of your employment and you not get angry. I was talking to somebody yesterday about substituting in the schools, and they were telling about another school district and how substitutes work, and they were saying there are certain substitutes who will only work in certain areas of the school. They were telling me that, and I went, I understand that. You feel like you're only capable to work with certain things, and you only do that. And I decided when I was going to become a substitute, I didn't care. I like all of them. I like all the kids. I have preferences, and they've noticed the preferences of where they want me. And one school, one of the divisions of the school, the elementary, grabs me more often, so the other schools can't get me. And they get mad, and they say, Tim, are you available to come to the high school? No, I'm already booked. Well, are you available tomorrow? No. And even when Brenda was over at the middle school, she texted me available, and every time I said, I'm already here, she goes, she would do that. She put like some emojis on there. I'm sorry, I don't have anything to do that. But all the time when I go over to the school, I walk in, not exactly knowing if I'm going where they said I was. That's the way it is. A crisis happens. And they go, one day they had me go to 4 different places, like an hour here, an hour there. And then they were calling me during the day, hey, could you go over here? I says, well, what do I do here? We're sending someone down. Just tell them they're in charge now. Okay, I don't care. And one time they says, did you get your lunch? I said, no, you kept moving me around. Oh, we're so sorry. I says, it doesn't matter. See, if you're willing to serve, you humble yourself and you just do whatever they ask of you. Here, Naaman is being asked to humble himself. See, are we willing to actually listen to Israel's God? Are we willing to listen to the prophet of Israel? Are we willing to listen to the messenger of the prophet of Israel? See, here's what Naaman had to get by. He wasn't getting to meet God, and he wasn't getting to meet the prophet of God. He was meeting the messenger of the prophet of God. Sometimes you got to listen to a person who's way down the totem pole of influence and realize that that's the one speaking for God. If at any point in our church here, we get to the point where we think one person's opinion or statement is more from God than someone else's, we're in trouble. Because God speaks through his followers, his believers, all of them. And at any moment, we should be listening if God is speaking through someone who we didn't expect would say something. Because that's how God works. Here it was a messenger. So in verse 14, he humbles himself. He goes down, dips 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. Naaman found healing. He experienced the power of God personally, dramatically, and fully. But he found more than he was looking for, because here's how the story ends. Naaman comes to Elisha. Verse 15, indeed, now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. He came to meet a prophet. He met a God. He came to meet the prophet. He was told about the prophet. The king thought it was the king who would do it, but they really knew it was the prophet who would do it. And here's what Naaman concludes. It had nothing to do with Elisha because he hadn't even met Elisha till this point. And he says, it was never about you. It was about your God. Naaman offers a gift to Elisha, which he refuses. And then Naaman makes a very interesting request. Verse 17, please let your servant, he is now the servant of Elisha. He now addresses Elisha as his master and says, let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth. I want dirt from your yard loaded on my mules. For your servant will no longer offer either a burnt offering or a sacrifice to other gods, but to the Lord. I live in Syria. I want to bring some of Israel to my home, and I am only going to offer offerings to your God on the dirt that comes from your nation that your God established and gave to you. Let me go. Okay, is he going to get into idolatry here? No. Naaman at this point is declaring his belief in God and his commitment to worship the God of Israel. And here's what he says. He says, when I have to stand with my king and bow to a false god, I am asking for God's pardon. I live in a nation where I am going to have to, on occasion, stand with my king, and he's going to offer offerings to a false god. I need you to pardon me that I have to stand there. And here's his words. May the Lord, this is verse 18, may the Lord please pardon your servant in this thing. Is God only focused on Israel? No, he is focused on the person in need. And what he wants the person in need to do is come to the understanding that God alone is God, that he will worship God alone, and even when he still lives in a culture that worships false gods, his heart will be with God. And when he is forced to live in a culture and in a climate where wickedness is done, would you please pardon me? We live in a nation that is so free that if you're asked to do something that is against the will of God, you can quit that thing and go do something else. Not everybody lives in that culture. Not everybody lives in a world that is so free that they are not forced to do things that are wrong just for survival, but in their hearts, I may be doing this on the outside, but you know I am not doing this on the inside. I am worshiping God alone. I am following him. So, you know, when we come to the communion here in just a moment, and here we have 2 things of the elements. We have in the top cup the juice that represents the blood of Christ, and in the bottom we have the bread. Coming up here and participating in this, and what we do here, if you're not familiar, if you're in the front half of the auditorium, you come to the forward through the center aisle and take and go around. If you're in the back, we ask you to go to the outside and come back through the center to the table in the back. As you take these elements, whether when you eat the bread and you drink the cup, it should be a symbol of your heart, of your commitment to Christ. That's what it should exemplify. You should not take it, and you should not drink if you think it gets you credit with God. It's not about getting credit with God, it's being humbled to God. I believe the journey of faith is a journey, and we start at some point acknowledging certain truths in the Bible, and we get to the point eventually of meeting Christ and being totally transformed. That's a huge journey, right? Where you are in the journey is where you are in the journey. None of us judge one another, we only judge ourselves. So wherever you are in the journey of accepting, understanding, and pursuing God as found in the Bible and his Son, Jesus Christ, then God says, come. Take the elements and represent in your heart where you are with God and humble yourself before him. It's no credit. You don't earn so many points. And when you get enough points, you're guaranteed a spot. It's just the repeated statement of faith of where we are before the living God. Naaman was ready to make his first steps of faith after the river when he got home and he dumped the dirt on the ground. And the first time he offered a sacrifice, he was doing it to the God of Israel. And the first time he'd have to stand with his king, while his king offered offerings to the false god, he would say, God, please forgive me. I have to stand here right now. I have no choice. But you know where my heart is. Dear Father, as we think of the power of your salvation in our lives, the revealing of the truth through the power of your Spirit and your word, we pray, Lord, that each time we take the communion, as we'll do again this morning, that you will be honored by the humility of our hearts before you. And our desire to state once again, as we do regularly, that we are a follower of you, that we want to pursue you as the Lord of our lives, that we want you to reveal to us the truth through your word as we make ourselves available to it. It's teaching, our own reading, our own study. We ask, Lord, that you would continue to reveal yourself to us and through us, that the world might see that you are real, you are powerful, you are loving, you are caring, you are forgiving, and you are able to heal. We pray this in Christ's name. Amen. As we begin to rise and come and take the elements.
My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. When darkness veils his lovely face, I rest on his unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. When he shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then in him be found, dressed in his righteousness alone, faultless to stand before the throne. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand.
the scriptures speak of death on the cross, a Roman invention used by the Jews because they were unable to perform their own method of execution, which would have been stoning. And God allowed the heathen practice of a wicked empire to humble his son. Because it was said anyone who hung on a tree was the worst of the worst. Rome didn't execute everybody, didn't have crucifixions happening every other day. It was used for the worst of the worst. It was used to demonstrate the power of Rome over these individuals who had challenged authority. And God said, the ultimate humbling experience of my son will be to go on a cross, to be elevated so people lifted up. In ancient worlds, when kings were defeated by other nation states, they would take the body of the king and they would pin him to the wall of the city so that everybody could come in and see the defeat, could see the loss, could see how that king had been humiliated. And so God chose the ultimate humbling experience culturally in its time for his son to willingly go and allow himself to be broken. And that is what the bread represents. Let's take that. The cup represents the blood of Christ, and the shedding of blood, it says, without this, there's no ability for forgiveness of sins. The payment is always within the blood, meaning the death, the complete cessation of life. In the narrative of Jesus' crucifixion trial, the shedding of blood happened repeatedly through the process. The beating of the back that ripped the back apart and the shedding of blood, the punching to the face probably broke open places. The jamming of a crown of thorns on his head so that he would have the royalty of a crown, but a crown that would show his weakness and his eventual demise at the hands of mighty Rome and the people who persecuted him, the Jews. So when he goes to the cross and they simply nail the hands and the feet, that is not really the dramatic nature of the loss of blood. And eventually, when they want to see whether he's dead or not, they pierce his side and blood comes out. But it was the constant humbling experience that I am willing to allow you to take my life through my blood from me, from the moment you arrest me till the moment I yield my spirit to God. And so we drink the juice. Our response to God's humbling his son is that we should bring praise to him. Let me invite you to stand as we sing Praises Rising.
Hear the sound of in your kingdom, broken hearts only new. You make us new. When we see you, we find strength to face the day. And in your presence, all our fears are washed away. Washed away. Hosanna, Hosanna. You are the God who saves us, worthy of all our praises. Hosanna, Hosanna. Come have your way among us. We welcome you here, Lord Jesus. Hosanna, Hosanna. You are the God who saves us, worthy of all our praises. Hosanna, Hosanna. Come have your way among us. We welcome you here, Lord Jesus.
Father, we thank you for this day that you bless us with. We thank you for the opportunity to gather together in your house with our brothers and sisters and just worship you and sing your praises. You are such a good God, and you bless us beyond our imagination each and every day. We thank you for your faithfulness, for your goodness. We pray, Lord, that as we go from here into this week ahead, that we will stay faithful to bring honor and glory to you in the way that we live our lives. We thank you for your love, for your mercy. We love and praise you. It's in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.